Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am really happy to be here this evening, and especially with two of my favorite people right here in studio with me. I promise you a very, very aggressive discussion this evening. A very energetic and robust discussion with two people who, back in the days, we call them youth. But they're all grown up now on the Diaspora Movement with Leo Gilling, and this evening with Akeelia Lawrence Maitland. And our guest this evening is Mr. David Mullings. But you know something? I don't like to sit down and read people's bios and stuff because it's too stiff. So I prefer to have a conversation. And David, you tell us who you are, and Akeelia, you go over all of what you tell us last week about who she is. So let's start with Akeelia this evening. Akeelia, tell us a little bit about you before we go to David.
I'm a member all the time. I'm sitting on my side, David. That's what's going on right there.
Oh.
And the last time I checked, when they talk about 40 on the 40 or 40 at 40, because I own my 40 that I turned last week, I'll proudly say I'm a 40-year-old woman who identify as Jamaican. Go by the name Akeelia Lawrence Maitland. So don't let the flyer fool you if you see Akeelia Lawrence. It's Akeelia Lawrence Maitland.
She has to set the record straight. She has to set the record straight.
Have to set the record straight. Mother of two beautiful kids. And if you have not gathered that already, Jamaican, very, very, very Jamaican and American. I am an American as well. So I own that side of me now. And, Leo, all the other stuff is just bonus for being privileged and honored to journey this life. And I'll just leave it as that and pass it to my good friend, David.
All right.
I love it.
David, go ahead.
No, well, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I was told that an artist never sells their own work, but I don't mind introducing myself. I'll keep it short and sweet. In my case, David Mullings, born in Jamaica, raised between Kingston and Miami, worked in Jamaica, and most importantly, served on the Jamaica Diaspora Advisory Board for 3 years under Marlon Hill. I was the first future leaders representative for the USA, and we helped to put together an interesting conference, and that's where I first met Akeelia. This is now many, many moons ago.
Make it sound like it's so far ago, Lord. David.
But you started it, Leo. Started, David. I don't know if you caught the other one where he sent an email invitation and it said Jerry Action. So he really started it.
Oh boy. So listen, I consider a lot of who I am, in fact, most of who I am today, to be attributed to my involvement with Diaspora Movement. With my involvement with all of what we are doing, of what I am doing. We have a lot of persons registered, and we have over 100,000 people on our contacts list. That I attribute to my involvement with Diaspora Movement. Even a part of me moving from California to Florida, it is because of the movement. It is because I want to get to Jamaica easier access to Jamaica. Tell me about David. Tell me about how your development does it have anything to do with the Diaspora Movement?
Well, it definitely plays a major part in my life story. I finished high school in Jamaica at 15 and moved to Pembroke Pines, so South Florida, at Kingston 21, as we call it. And I was going to school there, but I've been writing these letters to the editor of the Gleaner and the Observer. Gleaner typically would publish them. And this guy named Marlon Hill sends me an email just saying, I've been reading your letters, and it obviously is signed David Mullings, Pembroke Pines, Florida, USA. Marlon is in Miami, and said, hey, you need to get involved with this Jamaica Diaspora Movement. And he was the representative for the Southeast USA, so that's the lower 13 states. And so Marlon wrote me in first as like this youth representative with some events. I'd speak, tried to get more people, my age at the time involved. And it evolved from there, made some great contacts, people like you, Akilia, a number of others in the US, Canada, UK, and beyond. Obviously got to advise a few prime ministers, met with a number of politicians, some I'd known before, some I had to get to know in a different way. And it also led to me being asked to actually write a column in the Jamaica Observer. So I wrote a Sunday column, an opinion column in the agenda for more than 2 years, every Sunday, talking about economics, business, and politics. And that is something that had a lot of people see a completely different side of me. And it allowed me to contribute to nation building by sharing knowledge, sharing opinions, sharing case studies about other countries and what they've done, and giving a voice to some of the people who typically wouldn't get in the paper. So it's been critical to be a part of this movement, but it also allowed me to understand how government works and how other people see us in the diaspora as well. I think that we have a certain view of ourselves, and it's not always the same as how local Jamaicans, for example, might see us, or how government officials. So it's when you understand how the other side thinks, it's easier to negotiate or find common paths.
Akilia?
I'm not sure if I'll be as illustrious in my response as. And knowing David for as long as I know David, I'm gonna tell you that there's a whole script. Just go back and look at his. No, I would say one of the things for me, if I'm on a bus and I hear someone talking patois, I'll be that person that edge over to the side just because I want to mix and mingle with my fellow Jamaican. And what that does for me, Leo, is make me feel like home, that I'm connected. And, for me, yes, there are those formal happenings. That was a part of Jamaica Impact. That was my first foray into the diaspora. That's Jampack, and shout out to Jampack, still active, going live. That was my first start. But, where I started in that, Leo, I was doing my social work internship. And by the way, this is social workers month. So shout out to my fellow social workers. Yes, it is. Okay. I'm a social worker. Of course, this is Women's History Month. So gentlemen, just keep note that this is still Women's History Month. So I'm honored to be the only, but I'm in a substance abuse program internship, and an auditor was there. And I'm there striking up, chatting with the auditor. He's American, Black American. And I'm just chatting with him. And he's like, I know a good organization you can join. And, you just know me. And he's like, yeah, but all you're doing is talking about Jamaica this, Jamaica that. And I think what he realized for me is that I was homesick, because it was not too far from when I came to America. He realized I was homesick and still very much love Jamaica. And he connected me to Jampack. Ever since then, got my foray with Jampack. I think the Consul General at the time, Geneve Brown-Metzger, she started to do a series of events, generally diaspora related. And I started to participate in that. And thereafter, folks just kind of encouraged me to participate more widely, participate more. And boy, me and my big mouth, me having to put myself in everything. But I also like to put my money where my mouth is, put my foot to the fire, right? And really do what I can to support our community. But I think the biggest takeaway always from me in terms of that development, Leo, is just a connection to community, being a part of a tribe, knowing I'm away from home. I have a home away from home by participating in a diaspora.
David, what does diaspora mean to you? I mean, I want to know, because every time we talk to somebody, you get a different perspective, Because I've heard people say, you guys in the diaspora, they're in the diaspora with me, but you guys in the diaspora. I mean, give us your thoughts there, David.
Yeah, man, I am so used to that, where there is this misconception that is this membership-based organization, or that is elitist, is not inclusive, and I can understand where some of that comes from. But for me, the diaspora is all the Jamaicans outside of Jamaica who mean well for Jamaica. I'll be honest, I don't want to.
Why did you have that? Why did you add that?
I add that. I don't want to embrace the ones who don't mean well for Jamaica. I don't want, right? In my opinion, if you're a member of the diaspora, you are automatically an ambassador for Jamaica, whether you want to be or not. You open your mouth, people are going to think Jamaica, and if you speak ill of Jamaica or you misrepresent the country or make us look bad, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. So for me, it's those who care about improving the island, and also we need to expect.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that piece there. I really, I'm gonna add that as a tag on my shoulder.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, I know that I know what you mean, but sometimes people just get vexed sometimes because of things that happen to them in their life. And but later on, we'll give them a couple of years to feel bad and feel sad and thing and come back in.
We can welcome them back. That's fine. But there's a timeout, there's a pause, there's a timeout. But that's what it is for me, is right? It's a group of people who want to see positive development on the island and for Jamaicans wherever we are. I think unfortunately there is too much of a focus on the diaspora only helping Jamaica, the country, not helping Jamaicans wherever we are. Because there's this perception that because we're gone and foreign, we're boss, we're good, everything. Chris is like, no, we need help here too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's where we ended the conversation last week, Leo.
I
right?
think so. Yes.
It's a great pickup, David. That a couple of folks were commenting and saying, "What about Jamaicans abroad? What about us here? What do we do to support? What do we do to help?" Right? And again, I think that's why we share that kindred spirit in saying we're about Jamaicans all across the board, wherever you are, your descendants, even if you're married to a Bayesian or American, you're still very much ours, right? And so, I'm glad that you really expanded on that. It's one of the reasons why the National Pledge is my favorite, right? It's about uplifting Jamaicans so that we can advance not just Jamaicans, but the entire human race. And that is our pledge to the world. That's who we are. We carry that mantle, right? Wherever we go. But we know, so what they say, you have to dance a yard before you can dance abroad.
It's abroad. Well, yep.
Yeah.
So what as Jamaica, what is Jamaicans abroad? What is our responsibility to Jamaica, our Jamaicans? What are our responsibilities?
Boy, so it depends on who you talk to, right? I have my own personal opinion. I've gotten into a few arguments, probably more than a few, for people who said no, but, who said that their contribution or their responsibility to Jamaica ended when they already left, because yes, they got schooling through Jamaica and the culture, the society helped to raise them, usually up to teenage years in many cases. But I felt that, well, my parents were paying taxes, which paid for my education. So that's it. I don't owe anything to Jamaica. And I disagree with that, right? Anywhere in the world I go and I open my mouth, I am seen as a Jamaican. I got to live in Germany, in Berlin, Germany for 3 months while working on a startup. And we're an accelerator there. And I remember they interviewed us about 3 weeks into the program to ask me, how is it going being in Berlin? How are you feeling? And they especially this year, and say, I especially want to hear from you, David, as a Black person here in Germany. What has has it been like so far in the last few weeks? And I said, oh, it's been great. I don't understand why you're bringing up the race part. What's specific about it? I said, oh, well, last year we had some Black Americans in the program and they complained. They actually left early and they complained about racism and all these issues. And I said, oh, well, the thing is, they don't see me as an American. When I open my mouth, I am Jamaican. They immediately think of you differently. We are treated differently. And we have to admit that because, as we say, we lick about we tell Jamaica as a culture, that's our largest export, is our culture. And so I'd wear a Usain Bolt shirt, or I'd wear a Bob Marley t-shirt, I'd wear a Jamaica jersey, people running up to me all the time, right? In the train station or on the bus. Hey, you're from Jamaica, you're from Jamaica. And it made me feel so proud. So I think that reminds me that we need to ensure that legacy continues. That's what we owe to the diaspora. Anywhere you go, people say, oh yeah, man, I know a Jamaican nurse or a Jamaican doctor or this person, the hardest person in the firm that I know is a Jamaican. We have benefited from that. There's a positive brand that's associated with us in many cases, and we don't talk about it enough. And we owe it to the next generation of Jamaicans, especially those on the island, to ensure that positive brand continues so they can benefit from that. And even, can we turn it up a bit? Can we contribute and have a multiplier effect for these future generations? So that's what I think we owe Jamaica. It's continued legacy.
Go ahead, Akilia. I want you answer this one too. I want you answer this one. I want to hear how Akilia sees.
My responsibility
Yes.
to Jamaicans, right? Because I think we have set a context here that we're not just talking Jamaica. You know, look, Leo, right now I work in foster care residential, and I have 2 young kids in that residential that are Jamaican Americans. And I'm in my training right now today, and I have a team member who's Jamaican. And immediately when I first met that kid, and I knew she was Jamaican. She didn't know I was Jamaican. But I bust out and I said something, and she said, "You're Jamaican?" And I did that intentionally because I wanted her to know that she had somebody else there too. And for me, with my responsibility, it's always, what do we make sure that we do to make sure that every Jamaican feels supported, uplifted, and that they have access to the resources that they need to succeed wherever they go, wherever they are in the world. And particularly for those of us who come to America, right? We come for an American dream. We take this brave journey to go across the ocean. We come and we see these big apartment buildings. We don't know nobody in the building, maybe our mother, maybe a friend or a sister, whoever it is, but we're not as connected to community. So I think for me, Leo, my responsibility is always, how do we connect our Jamaicans, wherever you are, to get the resources that you need to succeed in whatever goals you want to achieve in this life, in whatever small way I can do that. You know, certainly formally, you know, I've done stuff to give back to Jamaica, but there are a plethora of organizations. We have a lot of Jamaicans who are motivated to giving back to Jamaica. One of the things that's always been important for me, and David, you and I always talk about this, is that even when we have our little 2 cents, we'll give that 1 cent back to grandma that we left in Jamaica. My goal here, my responsibility is to make sure that the Jamaicans that are here increase that 2 cents to 10 cents to 20 cents, so that when they feel that urge to give back home, they have more to give back home and more in their pocket to do well wherever they are.
But what do you think? I know that we send a lot of money back because I saw, you know, our we call it again, remittances doing pretty well, you know, in terms, but and that's probably the only way in which we are able to count the contribution that Jamaicans abroad give back to our Jamaica. I know that there are other ways, but we're not counting it, right? We are actually counting the remittances. Are we having the maximum amount of help, Akilia, from Jamaicans that are here, or are we it's just a handful of people who says we are leaders and we're doing it? I mean, what do you see happening out there?
I don't know that I think this is one of the part of the discussion last week. I don't know that we'll ever get to that maximum, right? We're always expanding, growing as a community. And just the pandemic alone has set us back in a lot of ways, actually. So I don't know that there's always going to be a maximum. Our world evolve, our world changes, right? And we have to figure out ways to give back. I would say there's a significant number. We're growing in size in terms of contributions to Jamaica. I like that you talk about remittances, but when you calculate other contributions, we're significant, very significant in double-digit portion of Jamaica's GDP. So our contribution is growing in terms of what we give back to Jamaica, and our contributions are growing here. We can list Jamaicans, you go on Jamaicans.com. And so, by the way, those who are watching, shout out to Jamaicans.com. That's also hosting this. But when you look right at Jamaicans.com, please subscribe. Every 10 seconds, I get something that talk about this Jamaican, the first Jamaica, the first this and the first, and we're just there presenting and doing the best that we can. But Leo, I don't know that we'll get to maximum capacity. What I would say, though, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It means there's room for others to come in and do your part. See your part. See what is your responsibility. What is your motivation? What is your goal, right? A lot of times I always said people get bringle, or for those who don't know, people get upset, right? When they see certain things that they don't. I like that you guys are getting something out of that. After all, this is a Jamaican show, right? But,
Right.
People get upset about what's not happening and where things are not going and how things are not. And I would say, take that as your calling. You notice it, you see it. Now help do something about it. So I think it just means that one man's garbage is another man's treasure. If there's room to fit in and do more to help Jamaica and Jamaicans.
David, are we maximizing the potential?
No, and we know that though. I think that's the easiest question you're going to ask anybody who has paid attention. Is that easy? No. First of all, yes, we're not maximizing, but as you guys point out, we're not even properly counting, right? Yes, remittances, we track that. I mean, remittances actually were up during the pandemic. Amazing. So remittances are there, but we don't send remittances because we want to Jamaica. We send remittances because we need to help our family. Right? We're sending it to friends and family for the most part. So that's separate from government and societal impact. So I would say that we're not really tracking all the work that we do on the philanthropy side. Like I've never seen a report that says, here's a number of overseas entities founded by Jamaicans, and here's the amount that they've sent back. Here's the projects they've done and the impact over, say, 3 years or 5 years. I mean, when you look at every single school that we are supporting, there is book drive or computer lab, scholarships. It's a tremendous amount we're doing. And that's just there. That doesn't include any sort of donations on the food for the poor, the medical missions that we're doing. But I think a lot of people tend to be, one, quiet about the stuff, right? We have been raised in a culture that, the higher monkey climb, the more back it shows. So we don't want to talk about it.
That's a sweet way to say it, because my next question is going to lead right into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. But we have to remember that if you talk about the success of doing it, right? Here's what I did, here's what I had to go through, here's the impact that I had. It inspires other people to do it. They say, oh, I can do this, or I can support you. Right? Most people want a vehicle or multiple vehicles they can support through. They don't want to start it themselves. There's a trust deficit. They don't know. If they don't know, they can't give. If you promote it, you market it, then they say, oh, I can go through this entity to support this one, and I can go through this one to support it. And it actually gets more of us involved. And so I think that we definitely need to do a lot more from that standpoint. And then obviously from a influencing government standpoint, right, and giving feedback or contributing to better governance in Jamaica. We're definitely not maximizing that. There's a lot more that we could do. It's not just presenting to a joint select committee or a parliament. It's not just writing a letter to the editor and complaining. Right? We have to do more. But as always, who is going to grab the bull by the horns and help to coordinate that? And how many people are willing to fight any headwinds that are going to come their way when they take that on, right?
Well, you're answering some of the questions that I have, but I'm gonna ask this anyway, because we seem to be competing a lot. Headwind, you call it, right?
Yes.
We seem to be able to get mad at each other in the diaspora. We form little factions here and little groups there, and then the two groups clash and everybody a fight. And why is this so? Does this happen in other cultures, or is it just Jamaica? I mean, I need to know that.
But that's what family do, Leo. I mean, no, let me tell you something. And I'm going to tell you that when I came here, I have two good girlfriends. One of them, every Friday night, her mother will gather everybody at the home, and you have Uncle Didi. I can't say the other name because maybe I identify, but Uncle Didi there, and he's dancing on the floor and he's doing it. And for some of us, we'll think, boy, you're embarrassing me, man, and boy, you can't settle yourself because him have him nice, you could drink and everything. But everybody was there. Everybody, no matter what your background, your story, your issues were, right? Everybody was there. I say that to say families fight, families argue. Now, of course, we have some issues that we need to talk about when it comes to how we interact with each other. No doubt about that, including around crime and violence, right? But families have conflict. I don't think the issue is whether or not we have conflict. The issue is how do we address some of this? And as you said, there are factions that tend to happen out of that. And I think then that next piece in our evolution, right, as a diaspora is how do we bridge these factions, right? Interests are fine. It's okay for people to have varying opinions. It's okay to disagree. But isn't it better that we can come to the table? And as I mentioned last week, how do we invite the voice of dissent always to the table, because we're still one community and have a pretty common interest across each other?
David.
Yeah, man. Well, so my answer will be a little bit different in that it does happen elsewhere, but I think that to the extent that I've seen in the Jamaican community is worse. And I think it's because we come from a very tribal society, politically tribal. And then we have cultural tribes, and we have to admit that, right? We have these labels, uptown, downtown, country, all these things that have followed us from Jamaica into the US, Canada, UK, wherever we are. And when I would always be introduced as someone that went to Mona Prep and Campion, there are certain people that just react a certain way to me. Nothing else other than the school that I went to. And then basically I have me up. It's like, you have not spent any time getting to know me. Why do you have these preconceived notions? If I'm not looking down on you or turning up my nose at you, give me a fair chance. In this country where we are, they don't see us as any different. We're the same Jamaica. It don't matter if I'm slightly lighter than you. Like, come on, man, or because I went to a certain school. So we need to disabuse ourselves of that. And I think some people have held on to that. And that's the negative tribal. So we need to get rid of that. And the political one, obviously, we need to just move on from that, right? We can't be bringing PNP, JLP into the United States and abroad. We have to get past that. We need to be thinking of one Jamaica and how can we work together, because there are certain common things that we want to see happen. So let's figure out a way to work together. And so it's unfortunate to see that some of that has continued, and hopefully we're going to see progress going forward. And maybe it takes a generation where they're away from that stuff. They're just not ingrained in the same things, and they're more willing to work with everybody. So let's see.
David, you mentioned something, and I'm going to ask the question. Isn't that idealistic? One Jamaica, isn't that idealistic? I mean, I know we come together when bolted around and everybody look like them are Jamaican, right? I mean, no say when the other Sharika and the other girls are around, we have Jamaica, But in reality, do we really have one Jamaica? I mean,
no, well, we don't have. But what's wrong with being idealistic? I need to have a goal. I need to work towards something. Right? I'm probably not going to achieve it, but at least we can move the ball forward. Right? I was taught to aim for the stars. If you fall short, it's still in outer space. Right? I'm not even here aiming for the sky. I want to go beyond that. So I am an idealistic person. Anybody who's read my columns or notes on Facebook, the columns in newspaper, they know that I'm a very idealistic person, but I'm also pragmatic in that it's not an overnight thing. It does, snap your fingers and change, but it starts with people committing to the shared vision, right? We have this document called Vision 2030, Vision Jamaica 2030. And I don't understand that so few people have read it. They don't even realize it's online and available. Speaking about it, have we even agreed on what Jamaica should look like in 2030? Right. Most people don't realize that there was some vision that was put together by more than one party, like 2 parties plus other people contributed. We need to agree. This is what I think Jamaica should look like. This is how Jamaicans should be treated around the world, what we should exude. And then we can work towards that. We definitely don't have agreement yet.
So Vision 2030, Akila, is idealistic, but we're being pragmatic to work the machine until we get there, right? Even though we don't know which part we are going, right? That's what you're saying.
We know where we want to go.
Okay,
yeah, we know where we want to go. We're just moving. We're moving slow. We're running on Caribbean people time.
I'm gonna come back to you, David, on a business proposal, because I want to know, because you do business in Jamaica, and maybe I'll just go there, Akila. Allow me.
Boy, David, you never say smoke without fire,
I was going to say.
What was it? I know there's a lot of Jamaicans who fear doing business in Jamaica for a whole heap of reasons, right? The red tapes, the government, the dishonesty sometimes, the corruption. You have been doing business in Jamaica. What's your experience that you can share with the rest of the audience and with me and Akila here?
Well, so yeah, I've worked in Jamaica and I've done business. I've been doing business in Jamaica, and obviously, we own shares in some public and some private companies down there. And in my experience with Jamaica is, first of all, you have the same trust deficit anywhere, any developing country going into. So if you decide you want to go invest in Mexico or Brazil or Sub-Saharan Africa or Vietnam, right, because it's hot, you can have the same issue. So it comes down to having a local partner that you can trust. That's where it starts. Who is a local partner or multiple local partners that you can trust and work with. And they can also give you some feedback on anybody else who approaches you to do business, right? You have to do the due diligence on people, because they can sweet talk you and do all this stuff, but we need to recognize that the legal system in Jamaica is fairly strong. Like, I trust the court system. I trust, standing in front of a judge in Jamaica. We just have to admit it can take a while to stand in front of a judge down there. So how do you structure your contracts? Do you have the contracts actually fall under US law, for example, or where is the entity based that does the business? From a red tape standpoint, yes, red tape does exist. They've reduced certain things. So people don't realize, at least most people don't realize, Jamaica has been ranked in the top 5 countries in the world for starting a business. So it's extremely quick to start a business. You actually have no red tape starting the business. If you fail, you're gonna have a bit of a problem closing the business. That's a different story. Starting is not a problem, right? Starting is not a problem. Opening your bank account, no. Still a little bit of red tape. We're still dealing with that, and that's just KYC and AML. So know your customer and anti-money laundering for obvious reasons. But local partners, local knowledge, and visit. Don't just leave it to someone else. Just like how we know in the diaspora that you don't send money down for your cousin to go buy the blocks and the cement and build a house every year while you intend to come back down in 20 years and retire, because there's not going to be a house. You need to do the same thing. Check. 2 eyes, fly down. And especially if it's business, then just remember that's a tax deduction for the business trip to visit Jamaica. So go check on that business. But don't be afraid to invest in a country that you're more familiar with the culture, more familiar with the people, and certainly you should be more familiar with the opportunity before you run after some other foreign land. I think we need to be looking at, because guess what? If we are not investing, who coming in is the Chinese investing and other people. They see the value. They actually see value that we are not seeing. And so we have to go. If they are willing to come down there and they've never set foot in that island before, how can we turn around and say, I afraid for going to invest in Jamaica? No, we have to step up. So, but the Chinese do the same thing. They find local partners to also work with them. They're not going to just go in by themselves.
Akilia.
Yeah.
I know you have to respond to that. Rebuttal.
Well, I am going to admit I always never operate out of my competency zone. So I'm not the business person here. You chose the right person to respond first. But what I would say, I mean, it's amazing how much I hear you, David, say that by no, you think that members of the diaspora don't send the money down to Cousin Fuku, because half of it is going to be eaten, and it still happens. It still happen. Handshakes still happen. Some folks never see a piece of land. You have, someone down your church sister because it's church, right? Say, hey, I have a piece of property down here. You want, check it out and take it. It happens still. I think my question maybe to David here is, what's going on there that we still engage in these practices, even in this day and age, but yet turn around and blame Jamaica for the outcome of it? What's happening there?
Well, I think it's something where a lot of people simply say, it won't happen to me, right? This time is different, or I am different, right? That's just literally how it goes. Like, I going to do this thing. I know these other people got caught there or got in trouble, but I can do it. It's not going to happen to me. It's just different. You think that you are special. Right? We all think that we're special in some way. And that's what we decide not to heed the general experience of other people. And that comes at a price, right? We say those who don't hear must feel.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately the way it really is, and especially in Jamaica. So I think that is an unfortunate situation. And those who have had issues, a lot of them won't talk about it, so they don't share with other people as a warning, which means that you don't have enough people recognizing that this is actually a real problem. It's not a one-off story. Yeah, man, I only hear this one person. No, it happen to 100 of your friends. This is normal to happen. Yeah. If people realize it happened more often than not, then I think they would be more cognizant of the way they approach doing business, or specifically those issues down there.
You know, David, one of my experience, one of my mind-blowing experiences is that I've been around and I've talked to a lot of persons, whole heap of people. And I really can safely say that a lot of persons that I've met here in Florida, in California, persons that I've talked to in Canada and England, don't really go back to Jamaica that often. They stay here, they work, and every 5 years or 10 years they don't go back. And I wonder what keeps them here. What make people not want to go back to Jamaica? What? Tell me, because I'm confused.
Well, I was going to say, up until COVID, I was in Jamaica once a month for 18 months straight. So it's a different story.
Yes.
But when I've spoken to people, we still have the house and the car. So and I was flying from Florida, so it's even cheaper. But when I've spoken to people that ask, when they say, "Oh, I haven't been home in 10 years. I haven't been home in 5 years," and you sit down and ask them why. It's obviously a range of answers. Typically, it's not financial. So it's not because of the cost of the plane ticket to go down. It's not because they don't have family. It's not because they're afraid people are going to beg them to bring down things and they don't want to pack up the bag. Yeah, I have just gotten one answer is just, well, I'm fine. I want to see other places as well. I know Jamaica, let me go somewhere, right? I want to go Cancun, I want to go France, I want to go Australia, great. But that's a very, very tiny group that give me that answer, right? Honestly, the most common answer I've heard is that a lot of people are homesick, and if they go home that often, they don't want to move back. They recognize that the quality of life is different down there, but there are certain things that they miss. They're stuck in the rat race now in the US, Canada, UK, and trying to keep up with the Joneses or live the American dream. And going back and seeing how much more carefree their friends and family are down there, and how much further their money stretch. Yeah, you're only there for a week or 2 weeks. You really still are experiencing as a tourist. You're not seeing how actually people struggling. But yeah, they get even more homesick. And so you come back and you say, man, I fly back to this cold weather in Chicago or Toronto. Man, why I can't go back a yard and breeze out, right? I take a pay cut, but I can work down there and get ahead. So that's certainly a big part of it. Some are homesick and they would just stay pretty much. They would just move back. There's another set that I've spoken to who generally are scared. Right? They have been paying attention to just the headlines, or more the negative headlines, and they have certain people telling them you're not safe, you can't, if you go down, you need to go to just the tourist area and so on. Or you mean you're going to Kingston? And so we have those who actually fear for their safety. And we have to do a better job of getting them to recognize that if 3 million tourists can fly down to Jamaica, and they're not all white tourists, right? They can go to Jamaica. There must be some safety. Right? Come on, people are living and working, going on the street every day, taking bus. So there's a perception around safety. So that's a second big piece of it. And then there's a third piece that seems to be a decent amount of the population as well, who just, I left and I don't need to have anything to do with Jamaica. I'm Jamaican and support, but I don't need to fly back down and be there. And they've literally divorced themselves of that part. They don't feel a need to go down. I think that is more people than we care to admit, but it's still a smaller number than the other two groups. But I do find it awkward that you wouldn't go down. Like 3 years past, not including the pandemic, just under normal circumstances, 3 years and you don't even set foot in Jamaica, I find that very strange. Yeah, especially if you're going to promote the country. Right? You open your mouth. People going to ask you where I should visit. If you don't know that there's a new highway or there's a toll road, or it only take you 45 minutes to go for a Kingston to tourist now, like, hello, there's been development.
Exactly right. What's your experience, Akilia, in New York?
In New York? Well, same experiences and no different. The range of reasons are just about the same on our side of the pond. I don't think it matters where Jamaicans are in the world. We've had the same range of experiences. I do agree with David, though. Part of that, for even a good segment of that group, it's folks having not taken the step to go back and experience Jamaica. And when I say experience Jamaica, beyond just the hotel or the tourist, when I go back, to Jamaica for myself. I tell people that I drive in Jamaica, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I enjoy driving in Jamaica. I feel a sense of control and independence. I'm sorry, I do. And
I know, I
actually
enjoy
find it.
driving down there too.
But I reflect on the experiences I've had going back to Jamaica, and I think back when I was living in Jamaica, that I may not have experienced some of those things. And so when I do go back to try to experience different places in Jamaica that I've never experienced before. And I do agree with you, David, that for me, I do get homesick. And I do wonder, can I afford this lifestyle beyond just 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, right? When I can go on somebody's boat somewhere and do a little, breeze out, or go up to a strawberry hill or something. Like, how can I enjoy these experiences more than just for a week in Jamaica? So I do wonder, do I have the ability to create what I need to create and move back to Jamaica, or move back to Jamaica some of the time, 6 months? And I'll say, Leo, I've met much older Jamaicans who are close, or even beyond retirement age, who do want to go back home. But as you said, David, they get caught in the rat race and don't see a way forward. And, I remember a few years ago at the Diaspora conference, I made a presentation. And for me, the presentation was to simplify, how do you create what you need to create to go back to Jamaica? Whether it's investing in NHT, National Housing Trust, you can voluntarily contribute to Jamaica, right? Because not all of us have money put aside big time to invest in certain accounts, right? So what are some smaller things that we can encourage folks to do, whether it's a Victoria Mutual, Jamaica National, or various banks, national commercial banks, right? How do we open up accounts? How do we voluntarily contribute to National Housing Trust, right? To go below market value in buying a house for myself in Jamaica. I actually tell young people, Leo, that if I knew better, I would have bought my house first in Jamaica before I buy it here in America. Just because, right? The way Jamaica's mortgage system work, especially when you talk about age, and you and I, David, have gone back and forth, but I think about the average
Hold on. Why
person,
didn't you
right?
put me in that? You say you
Say
and I,
what?
David. You say you and I, David.
David,
Why am I not in that?
Oh, Leo, we have other conversations. We talk
I
about
don't see no
philanthropy.
gray hair on Leo in that man. Come on. Not one gray. I think I have more gray hair than Leo.
But just to wrap up that piece, Leo, I think for me, I try to kind of simplify. Think about how can you take $100 out of your paycheck every now and then to start to build your little piece of space in Jamaica, get your little piece of the rock in Jamaica, so that when you fly down, you have your little space to go to. If you choose to rent it out, you rent it out, right? But it's yours. You don't have to wait for retirement age to do that. And when I tell folks that, their eyes wide open, like, I can do that. I can voluntarily contribute to National Housing Trust. And because of that, Leo, the National Housing Trust and other bodies started to do a bigger tour in the US, recognizing there was a need in the diaspora for more education, right? To learn more, right? And I think that's a good segue. And I would love to hear, Leo, from David about his evolution, being one of the first on the advisory board, what that meant hosting that youth conference. Because it's from that point for me, it was, wait a minute, we need to open up the eyes of the diaspora member. We can look and say, why them don't know better and them still make the same mistake. But some of that have to do with education. What are we doing to better educate our Jamaicans to dispel some of those myths? And then talk about the vehicles that they can engage with to better not just give back to Jamaica. A lot of times when they hear about it, give back to Jamaica, but to invest in your own self through Jamaica, right? And not just through your American experience.
I met with a gentleman yesterday. He's a friend of Jamaica. And he tore up my heart, right? Because he says he's from an affluent Chicago neighborhood, and while he grew up, the kids in that affluent neighborhood were just complaining all the time about what they don't have, And so he has had a chance in the past 15 years or so to go back to Jamaica on a regular basis and go to primary schools and go to basic schools, go to the communities. And when he sees how what complaining should be, he looked at where he's coming from and why we or our kids should be complaining. It breaks his heart. So he's trying to find ways how to help our children out of the type of murkiness that we are into. We might not think it's murky when we're growing up, but when we come America and we go back, is when we said, Lord of mercy. You know what I mean? People, if you have not taken a chance to go back home and look at some of the conditions where you grew up, you will continue to take this thing for granted and you stay away from Jamaica. We want you to just go back in your community and go to the school, go to the basic school or go to the infant school and try to become a part of that. Let me tell you something, your heart will be completely broken and then you won't stop going back to Jamaica. But you have to go back. And it pained me yesterday. It still pains my heart when I saw him, the man bust out a balling yesterday. And I said to myself, Jesus, he's just a friend of Jamaica. You know what I mean? And so I that was just a little rant there for me, because I want to use the next few minutes with David to learn about your business. I'm so appreciative of the fact that you took the time to come on the show here with Akili and I, and I want everybody to know about your business, how they can engage with Jamaica through yours or any other business. But I really am interested to you to tell us more about what this David Mullings doing. Because you talk about whole foolishness about diaspora and foolishness.
Leo, wait a minute.
Don't use the word foolishness. I'm not talking about no foolishness, man.
After all of that, we get to that point. I don't understand that.
He wanted us to laugh, man. He got serious. I need to break the ice.
Well, if you will indulge me, Leo, and if David will as well, just talk about that beginning experience formally at a high level. With youth engagement and how that experience was for you, and even what your takeaway is from that experience.
Thank you, Akila. I missed that one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so we did the first and now only Future Leaders Jamaica Diaspora Conference back in 2009. And this was, myself in the US, we had, Leo out of Canada and Saffron Jackson out of the UK. Nathaniel Pete was a big part of it as well. Professor Neville Ying at UA was a major part of helping us pull this together. And we got a lot of support in putting it together. And what we did was ensure that, unlike most of the traditional diaspora conferences, there was a contingent of local Jamaicans. So we had essentially half of the delegates were local, because what we wanted was to connect with people our age on the ground in Jamaica so we can benefit from their experience. And also, instead of thinking we are coming with solutions, we first wanted to hear them describe their problems and solutions they may have, so that instead of trying to force a solution on them, we would first hear and we'd say, oh, well, we can add to that or we can help. And it allowed us to really make some lifelong friends. And you included, with obviously Nathaniel, Leo, Saffron, we all stayed in touch. We built a great relationship. So I thought that was really important, because future leaders, right? You ended up serving on the board. I ended up advising in other ways. It gave us some great connections on both sides of the aisle with government down there as well. And yes, I would love to see that. I would love for it to have continued. I think there has to be more engagement with a different age group, younger age group that might be more tech savvy or better at from a marketing standpoint or communication, helping to change the perception of Jamaica. Right? We shouldn't wait until we're over 35 to try and bring people in to the movement. We should be, we have CSAs, right? We have Caribbean Student Associations all over the place. And that's at college level. There's already an interest in the culture. Typically, if you're an immigrant, it's closer to when you come of age 16, 17, 18, especially when you go into college, that you really start identifying as that. So it really comes out that I am Jamaican. As other people talking about it, you're going to find other people at college is searching for that identity. Let's grab them then and pull them into the movement at that point and have them become lifelong contributors. So it has been critical for me in the relationships that I've made. And even the idea of what I've explored now is somewhat tied to coming out of that conference and serving on the advisory board. I was specifically asked to present, and we'll get into the business side, but it tied into what I'm doing today.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I really, really like that. I'm glad for that question, Akila. That's really, one of the problems that we've had over the years in engaging youth is because we are approaching it the wrong way. We think that many of us think that when we say engage youth, they have to come and do philanthropy. But that's not. That is foolishness, right? Because they're not ready for that yet. But we can engage them in the way right where they are on the college campus, form organizations, and just say I'm Jamaican. Just wear the cloth, and because it is.
Leo,
yeah.
I hear you. Let's take it back further. My daughter is 7 years old. I think she can talk Jamaican more than some Jamaican, right?
Yeah.
And my son is 10. Last year we went to Ocho Rios, and we did some snorkeling. We climbed the waterfalls, and she just
no. Snorkeling is not Jamaican. Snorkeling is not Jamaican. Stop it.
Hold on. Let me talk about my experience. With my 7-year-old, not waiting until college age. And every so often she's asking, when are we gonna go back to get Guinea? Me to spend $900 and something to fly by plane to go get Guinea.
I would do it.
And she said, I know what I want for my birthday come September. My birthday is in September. But it involves a big beach event, right? That for them, you're building that, you're nurturing that connection very, very, very early on. As you said, when you go back or when you just take them. I had my son go to the consulate for an event and recite a Bob Marley piece. That for me are those smaller, don't wait until they reach 16, 14, or even 20. Even at that point for them, they want to do their own thing at that point, right?
Yeah, man.
But start early. How do you inoculate the culture in our young people from share your poems with them, your songs with them? And we know we do that, but do it in a way that is so much more intentional, right? Read those Anansi stories to them. Talk about our national heroes and who they are, right? There are a lot of good children books that are out there that illustrate it to them in a way that makes sense. That's where you start youth engagement. From very early out, that's where you really start to nurture that Jamaican spirit in our young people.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I get to David now, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
You see, David, this is what I deal with all the time, right? But okay,
hey, that's
go
how
for
you
it.
co-hosted, man.
Listen, I love Akila. Let me tell you why I love Akila, right? Back in 2015 or 2013, I don't remember.
I don't even remember.
I made a speech on some platform. The USAID said, "Hey, listen, I want you to come talk to me." Yes, we are interested in what you say. So I bring Akila with me, and we walked out with $250,000 for our program. So I love Akila. Me and her don't really talk.
I still don't remember.
I don't like her too much, but I still love her.
David, as you can see, who is talking mostly. I don't know what I said in that conversation, but apparently I did something in that conversation. So I'll take the credit. No problem.
Take the credit. Exactly. Take the credit. I love it.
Tell us about your business. We want to know.
Yeah, man. Well, so Blue Capital, we describe it as an impact investment firm that's focused on being the bridge between the US and the Caribbean. Obviously, Jamaica is a key part of that. The idea came about when I was actually on the Diaspora Advisory Board. I was eventually asked by Marlene Street Forest, head of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, to speak at their annual conference in January and to explain in my own words, what do I think they need to do that would get Jamaicans overseas, the diaspora, to invest back into Jamaica? Not more remittances, not more philanthropy. And so I said, when I went up and presented, I said, well, it's 5 things in my opinion we need to deal with to get the diaspora to invest. Number one, it can't be government bonds. It can't be led by the government, right? We don't want to give the government our money to then invest on our behalf. There's a trust deficit, just like any other developing country other than Israel. There is a trust deficit. So it would have to be a private sector-led initiative. Number 2 is that it would have to be run by someone from the diaspora with investment experience who has worked between the region and the US, Canada, or UK, and goes back to Jamaica more often than most of the people who would be willing to write a check. You need to know who to do business with on the ground, who not to do business with. And of course, you need to understand what's happening on the ground. Thirdly, I thought you had to partner with a local financial institution that was known and trusted outside the region. Right? We need to avoid the Bernie Madoffs and so on. And number 4 was where to domicile an entity. And as much as I said earlier, I trust the court system in Jamaica. I have no problem standing in front of a judge. I think we all admit that we run on Caribbean people time down there. It's too laid back. So it would take forever to stand in front of a judge. God forbid there's a problem. So it needed to be domiciled in a country where the legal system just was more efficient. And so, of course, I prefer this. I think that most global investors feel comfortable investing in US-based entities, regardless of where they're doing business. And then 5th and final, most important though, is that it had to be something for the person with $100 could participate in, not just the person with $100,000. So it couldn't just be a venture capital fund or a private equity fund or a hedge fund. It had to be something that was open to the retail investor. Right? We call rich people accredited investors, according to the SEC. You need to be able to get to retail investors, the average person. So I pitched that, and a few years later, a few people in Jamaica asked me, so that thing that you pitched when you launched it, I was like, no, I wasn't pitching it to launch. I was telling you guys what needs to be done to get people like me to do it. And then you know how Jamaicans say, they boost you up and say, well, you're the perfect person. We know you work at Jamaica National in Jamaica, you work in private equity and then a hedge fund in the US. You should do it. So I evaluated it and decided, let's start. Let's start with my money, my parents, and then we expand to friends and family. So the goal is to be able to invest back into the region. Jamaica is a key part of that, but we are doing things in Bahamas. We're looking at Guyana, Barbados, Trinidad. Now, we don't want to just focus on Jamaica only, but on the public equity side, we've invested in the Jamaican markets, the stock exchange there through our company itself, and that's been very beneficial to us, and we look forward to being able to do that at scale. And then we've also done we created a finance entity, so we have a subsidiary called Blue Maho Finance that's been unlended money into Jamaica to small and medium-sized businesses through a partnership with a licensed and regulated company in Jamaica, helping to increase access to capital and reduce the cost of capital. As you know, interest rates tend to be fairly high. If you had a business credit card in Jamaica, we're talking about 40%. So when you can get somebody capital at 15%, 13%, they are jumping for joy. To us, in these developed markets, that's high. Over there, though, that's very low. I think they already were a profitable business with higher rates. So that's what we do, right? We're working on something that would allow retail investors to participate and know that.
I was going to ask you, are you still in the $100 and up type of thing, right? Yes?
Yeah, man, we're still working on it. It's not out yet for us to be able to go on. From the minute it is available, the minute we have something in place, believe me, I'm going to be jumping and shouting from the rooftop and coming back and promoting and doing town hall sessions, because even right now, my people calling, emailing every single week. People want to have exposure to the region, Jamaica in particular. But the problem is that one is it's such a pain to open your own account, right? To open your own investment account. But then on top of that, they just don't even know what to buy. Like we own a 10% stake in an IT services and cybersecurity firm in Jamaica. That's a deal you would never be able to do because it's private, right? It's not publicly traded. How can we support these businesses that have global scale? These companies, yes, they may be based in Jamaica or based elsewhere in the Caribbean, but a lot of them can service the world. And the pandemic just proved work from home really means work from anywhere. So how do they buy into that? How do they know that when I put in $1, my dollar is helping to build economies, contribute to job creation, or even have a true impact, right? It's not just job creation is critical, it has a multiplier effect. But most importantly, we are less likely to pull our money out of the region when there's a crisis.
Yeah.
Right? Hurricane come, foreign money runway. This is why you've had the Asian debt crisis in the past, in Malaysia and so on. The foreign money comes in, something happened, they get scared and they pull it all out. We, as Jamaicans in the diaspora, as Caribbeans in the diaspora, we wouldn't be doing that. And we understand why Gilbert did come, Jamaica come back anyway. Right? So Ivan did come. We will bounce back. And in fact, that is when we most need capital to be injected. We need equity capital flowing in to help with the rebuilding, to help ensure that we leapfrog. So that is where we're going. And so we're working very hard on having something in place that allows people to participate and not have to manage a portfolio on their own, not have to go and check we go to pretty much every annual general meeting in Jamaica. We know a lot of the management teams for these companies on the public side. We have some private deals we want to do, and we're excited for what comes next. And it's not just limited to any one or two industries. It's not just finance. It's not just the microfinance, IT services. We want to invest in agriculture and food security and improving the yields, for example. We want to look at waste management and recycling. We want to look at water conservation. We need to look at health. It is everything under the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I think, is important, but there's a massive amount of untapped diaspora capital. Let's think about it this way. We send back $3.3 billion in remittances per year as just Jamaicans. The majority of that, some 67% from the US alone. And the majority in the US is coming from the tri-state area and Florida. So there's a ton of money that is being sent back. Imagine if just 1% of that was going to be invested. I mean, that's tens of millions of dollars that we definitely feel would be available.
Question to you. Have you bypassed then, because I'm listening, have you bypassed the fear of investment that Jamaicans in the diaspora would be to speak to that so that we can feel comfortable?
So it's not that you can't bypass fear, right? You have to overcome fear. So it starts with first educating. So most people in general, not just the diaspora, most people have never invested, period. They've never bought shares in even a public company, 401k, or open an account at Rebuttal. They've never bought shares. So it starts with financial literacy and that education. Right? Even though we have people who have moved to a country like the US, many of them still have not gotten that financial literacy around investment. It's not something most of us have grown up discussing around the table, wealth creation, and being comfortable with that. So first we have to overcome investing. Like just buying Apple stock is already scary for a bunch of people. So you start with that. Now you want to invest in companies. They're not even local. They're not here. They're over there. So you have to overcome that second piece. But we've seen it work so far in terms of the private side when we've done friends and family. And it has not been as hard as I expected. It might be because when you look at what they call the product adoption curve, right? The early adopters are the easiest. It only gets harder to get people to do something. So we're dealing with the easy piece first. It's going to get harder. But I think the financial literacy component is one. The second thing, though, is for them to trust the people, right? So who are the people behind this? And then secondly, if we're going to do something that's available to retailers, firstly, it would have to be qualified by the SEC. So this is not something that is an unregistered offer. It has to be qualified by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So that's one. Secondly, it's going to have to be audited. So that's one of the most important things that all of us know, because we've seen, whenever the audits and years that the government teach someone, it's an audit that finds it. So audits are important. It's audited. You also have these annual general meetings. You have quarterly reports. So people get to feel ownership, right? A share in a business means you're part owner of that business. It's not just a piece of paper. So what does ownership mean? And then, of course, it's transparency. Because it's audited, because it would be available to retailers. You have to put all this information out so everybody knows exactly what you're doing with the capital, how the business is doing, where the money is deployed, who your strategic partners are, what is going wrong. And then, of course, I think the last one is a partnership on the ground. Who are you working with, right? In our case, we've done our stuff through Jamaica National. I used to work there, so I trust that business. I understand it very well. And then we work with NCB Capital Markets, two of the best known names in the diaspora from a financial standpoint, from prudent management. Those things I think are crucial. The final piece that we're working on now is our board of directors. So we put it together. We have a prospective board of directors. We're still interviewing some more people, and that's going to help people feel comfortable as well. I mean, we have one person that's joining, not a Jamaican. This is a friend of Jamaica, as you would say, but he helped take a company public, and that's that. Great. I want to have access to that kind of knowledge to support what we are doing, to ensure that we minimize risk. You cannot eliminate risk, but you can minimize risk. And that's what we want to focus on doing.
David, this sounds like many moving parts. But all those moving parts, I'm sure, is important, right? In building that trust. And again, as you said, managing the risk, or at least a sense of safety that people feel in investing. I do believe I hear you say you haven't launched off yet. So I'm the average Jamaican still with the $100.
Yeah.
My pocket is still $100, David. And I'm wondering, don't be fooled, Leo. I know you keep trying to tap in, but I'm still $100. Still $100. What would you say to folks now, right? In doing something to invest in themselves, what would be some things that you would say now for folks to get started with investing in Jamaica in the absence of what you have or what you're proposing?
So if it's not small, to be honest, I wouldn't look at investing in Jamaica in the sense of getting a return on that capital of the 100 that you could be saving every month. It don't make sense to go and open an account and then put 100 in and try and figure out what to buy. I think it becomes too much work for the little $100. I think if you have that money, you should be saving it, right? You should put together this account that will get to 1,000, 5,000 to eventually then go and do some of the larger investments. Or you can decide that, I want the tax break, so I want to donate that 100 through a registered 501c3 in the US or a charity in Canada or the UK, and know that I'm having impact that way, right? Some of these entities are investing back into Jamaica in the sense of they're getting a return on those dollars. So I think that's the other option, right? Small checks, when pooled together in that way through the philanthropy side, reduces your tax liability. That's never a bad thing. That's an automatic gain right there. And you're going to see a multiplier effect. But if you're not investing at all anywhere, I think you need to start. Like open an account. I use a Stash, STASH, is an app that I use for my kids. I do open the custodial account, and there you can buy fractional shares, $10 you go put in. Start buying some stuff, build good financial habits. Every month you buy $50 worth of stock. Right? It might be a fraction of Netflix or Apple, right? I'm not giving you actual stock advice. These are actually ones in the boys' account. But get into the habit of investing so you can pass it on to your children. And I would say
essentially whet your appetite, begin to whet your own appetite and tolerance for risk. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. It can't be that you just want to save up and buy a house and invest in real estate in Jamaica. Like it has to go beyond that, in my opinion. Real estate is a part of a wealth creation portfolio, but you need to own pieces of businesses that can scale, right? My house I can build on it, I can spend some more money on it, but the house itself is still confined to this area versus a business can be now in 50 countries or 100 countries. It can grow revenue and grow profits. It's not the same as a house, unless you're doing an Airbnb. And that's one, but then you still have to raise prices even after it's booked out for the whole year. So scalability comes from owning a few high quality businesses and then hold them for the long term. Very much Warren Buffett.
You're saying your portfolio should be all over, have components.
It's a mix. I don't like the word all over. It sounds like
we can. Let's show something. Well, David, it's a Jamaican soup on a Saturday, okay?
We know.
Yeah, man.
Well, Leo, I'm seeing comments on Facebook. So if folks see me looking down, I'm looking at some of the comments on Facebook. Okay. And I'm wondering what folks are asking. So someone asked, what's the minimum they would recommend? I'm wondering if that has to do with investment. What's the minimum you would recommend in getting started?
So I think that the minimum anybody should start with $100. Like this is obviously I wasn't saying on the Jamaica side. If you're going to start on the Jamaica side, I think you should start with more on the $1,000 side. When you convert that, it's a nice sizable amount, and it will go even further. Most of the shares in Jamaica are going to be trading at a fraction of a US dollar. So $1 today is like 153 to 1. most shares are going to be priced between 2 and 20 in many cases. There are some others that will be higher than that, and you would look at those. But yeah, it will stretch further. Going in with just 100, I think. I don't even know if anybody will open their account for $100, 100 US in Jamaica at this point. I think the minimum is $1,000 US to go in. On the US side, if you open with Stash or so on, it's literally $10. You can put $10 in a Robinhood account, $10 in a Stash account, or you go to Chase and you open it through Chase. They have a self-service one. I think that's in Charles Schwab is an easy one to open as well. I set my parents there. So, but start. Like if you are not invested, I cannot stress enough how important it is to build that habit and pass it on to your children, your friends, your family members. Invest. I don't mean speculate. I mean actually invest. Like I'm buying these companies, here's why, and I'm going to hang on to it, and I'm going to add and build a portfolio and let that portfolio scale. And of course, it's not financial advice, but right now, boy, the stock market taking a pummeling, which means that there are deals to be had.
Yeah, I know. All right, so I think we're close to wrapping up. We have a couple of minutes left, and I want to get some thoughts from both of you, so you can use a minute each and just wrap up your segment, and then we can say good evening for the. I really thank you for that. I mean, I love your presentation, by the way, and I encourage people, if you have $1,000, call him up, really.
So I never said that to them. I mean, I get so many calls out to help people. Like I even share sometimes our individual portfolio and what happened. I want to help people. Right? We've been through the process of opening the account for an LLC. We've been through the process of opening a personal account years ago. Been through the process of opening an account for a C Corp. So I can certainly help guide. We've made introductions to our people, so it can run a little smoother, right? You have somebody that, hey, David recommended I talk to you to open my account and so on. So I do want to help people. We obviously want to make a simple way so they don't have to go and do something themselves. We just do this big pooled vehicle that's audited and transparent and allows us to work at scale. And you can sleep comfortably at night. Check in every annual report. So, I mean, I would say reach out to me. It's david@bluemohocapital.com. You can just email me. Or info@bluemohocapital.com works as well. The website is bluemohocapital.com. You can just contact us, shoot me an email. Happy to make some time. If you want us to speak to a group, I've had a number of people ask me if I can just do a small Zoom call for 5 of them or 10 friends. They gather them around on a Friday evening and let me just talk about my experience, working in Jamaica, investing in Jamaica and the Caribbean, why we care about it, how we approach it. Anything I can do to share knowledge and get you more excited and help you to change that perception of doing business in Jamaica and the Caribbean and investing down there. I am happy to play that role. I think that certainly that is what I am. Honestly, I feel like that's what I've been put on this earth to do at this point. I enjoy it, a passion. Clearly, everybody loves what I do. So I need to fulfill my role. So message me.
Akilia.
Yes, Leo.
Yeah, wrap your part. He just wrapped this segment up, so.
Oh, okay, all right. You just called my name. It's just, I think we came back full circle. I know, David, you mentioned investing in Jamaica and the Caribbean, but you also went into just invest, right? And that brought us back full circle to what are you doing or can do for yourself as a Jamaican, regardless of wherever you are in the world, to strengthen your own capacity to better give back to Jamaica or give back wherever you want to give back, right? Jamaicans will always get the accolades wherever we are. As you said, David, you walk into a room and you open up your mouth and then people get excited, right? They just feel that we're just so exotic. Yes, there are people who have said that to me, right?
I know.
And I say all that to say, at the end, a takeaway I would have to you, David, to you, Leo, is how do we continue educating?
Yes.
And we started with that. We talk about the fears, but we also recognize it's a lot of myth. It's a lot of sidebar conversation. I was in the barbershop and my barber is actually on watching right now. And we were in the barbershop and we were cracking up on Saturday because some of the conversations were like, no, that is not true. That is not true. That is not true.
Barbers are doctors.
Hey, I can relate.
But you talk about, and one of the guys there, he's not a barber. He was there for about 3 hours. and he's going into some education, right? And him drinking a drink because it's Saturday night and all of that good stuff, right? And I say that to say these folks are credible messengers.
Yeah.
And in that education, I wonder, how do we get out to the credible messengers? How do we engage our credible messengers to get that message out? So when you talk, David, about that first part of that curve, that's easiest, I wonder about that second part. Is there a way we bridge that through that warm relationship, those credible messengers, and say, boy, you know, me did do a thing, me did work on a thing, yeah, man. But it must say it in a different way now, right? But we go through such and such company and them really start it out and me get one lawyer will review my contract, and you know, that's the kind of conversation that we want to evolve to. But part of that start with that education and getting those credible messengers to sing the same, those ambassadors as you talk about, right? How do we educate our ambassadors to spread the message, spread the wealth about how do we strengthen ourselves here as Jamaicans? However we do it, whether you start with Stash, whether you start with National Housing Trust, whatever you do, get started, right? And help to build up one cocoa, full basket, and shifting things in our community. So that's my piece of the wrap up when you call my name, Leo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, David, so I mean, I've had my Series 6 and 63 license for the past 15 years. Right? So
Leo, but Leo.
Hold on.
Have you seen Leo's LinkedIn, David? Do you see the letters?
Yeah, man. Letters and numbers.
Can't get involved with the conversation, right? You can't get involved with the financial conversation.
Yeah, man. Very restrictive. Right? I've been specifically told not to get mine because of how restrictive it is. Let somebody else who have them.
Exactly. All right. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen out there in La La Land. Thank you so much for joining us and engaging us. I want to thank David. David, I've had a lot of respect for you since I met you in 2009. Is it 2008 or 2009? Really?
8.
Yeah. I've watched you in different on different forums and the way you eloquently deal with your business. I really appreciate that. And so, Akilia, thank you very much. I know that you're always there and I like you, but I love you, you know, that kind of thing. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you
for what you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.